Soldiers on the march. Some onlookers, unaware of how the Army does its job, may think that here they see the real strength and power of the Army, in its numbers, in its mass of soldiers. You know better. The battle-winning superiority of the United States Army lies in the fact that each soldier is a specialist in at least one military skill. A military skill taught him in training and employed by him in unit and combined operations against any potential enemy. That skilled army of military specialists did not evolve simply by putting a uniform on a civilian. Each man is the end product of a carefully planned, coordinated, and realistic Army training program. Individual training begins at the training center. The training regimental commander, along with his staff, starts weeks in advance in a detailed development of the unit's training program. S3 has staff responsibility for training and for staff coordination of the training schedule. Decentralized training is emphasized wherever possible in order to develop junior leaders. Supervision is planned for in every phase of training and is the only sure method the commander has for determining that the training program is being effectively implemented. This supervision stresses encouragement and deserved praise as well as constructive criticism. Before the formal phases of training begin, the newly inducted soldier goes through pre-cycle training. Here he learns the proud traditions of the Army and its achievements in combat. He is taught Army customs and courtesies, among them how to wear the uniform. He learns of the Army's medical services and facilities. And the Army way of life. The trainee, now beginning to feel at home in the Army, is ready for the first phase of formal instruction, basic combat training. The objective in this first formal cycle is to produce a soldier in top physical condition, mentally aware of his duties and responsibilities, and indoctrinated in the fundamentals of soldiery. First, the simple things correctly done. Training men in the habit of doing things right is really a definition of training in all its phases. What the soldier learns to do as a habit in training is what he will automatically do in combat. So the months of training start, and the former civilians begin adjusting to Army life. They begin to look, act, and feel like soldiers. Physical fitness underwrites any successful course of training. The soldier must be physically hard, tough, and ready. Ready to undergo the rigors of combat. Taking it all with the confident pride of a soldier. Some types of training in themselves help condition a man, while teaching him to survive on the battlefield and take care of himself in close combat. Trainees are taught to maintain their health in field and in garrison. And to keep themselves clean. Because of the increased effects of today's weapons and greater dispersion of troops, first aid is every soldier's business. It prepares him to take care of himself and his buddy. Maintenance of equipment is taught as a matter of self-preservation and personal pride. Then supply economy. Supply economy is brought home to the soldier in constant reminders. Learning it right forms the habit of doing it right. Guard duty, its responsibilities and formalities. In basic combat training, the soldier completes the Army's standard marksmanship course, Train Fire 1. He learns to detect and hit fleeting and obscurely seen targets, such as he will encounter in combat. Under the train fire concept, the soldier fires his first shot group at the start of instruction, thus immediately building interest in his rifle. Next, he studies the mechanics of the weapon. And then continues with his preparatory marksmanship training on the 25-meter range with stationary targets. When his marksmanship reaches a satisfactory level, he goes on to the pop-up targets of the field firing range at ranges of 75, 175, and 300 meters. Each target is killable. A hit puts it out of action. Concurrently, trainees are taught to detect targets on the target detection range under realistic simulated combat conditions. Training progresses from the detection of single stationary targets to multiple moving targets. The trainee next goes on to record firing. In combat, a low shot may either strike the target or keep it out of action with a ricochet. The Train Fire 1 course not only teaches marksmanship skills, it also prepares soldiers to detect and kill combat targets and encourages confidence in their weapons and in themselves as marksmen. In the basic combat phase, night training is stressed. Night vision techniques are constantly sharpened in repeated lessons. With modern long-range surveillance equipment and long-range weapons in enemy hands, the soldier is taught that he will, in wartime, not only devote much of his time to night operations, but also to perfecting camouflage and concealment techniques which are effective against aggressor daytime surveillance. Realistic training in battle indoctrination brings out to the soldier all he has been taught in the basic combat phase, the foundation on which all his later training will be built. Throughout training, the soldier is tested in weekly evaluations to determine his progress in learning what is being taught. In addition to these weekly checks, the end-of-phase test provides information on which both the skills of the soldier and of his instructors may be evaluated by the commander. This graduation test is thorough, yet each man feels that he receives patient, understanding, even special treatment, that he is appreciated as a man, not merely a uniformed body. In the basic combat phase, specialization is avoided until the soldier has learned to move, shoot, and most important, to take care of himself and his equipment under simulated combat conditions. Now that he has learned these, he is qualified to move on to more advanced training. The objective of advanced individual training is to teach the soldier to be a generalist. He must master many skills required to qualify as an infantryman. Learning by doing is the training method emphasized throughout all phases. After the soldier learns theory, he learns to apply it, as in this map reading problem, where he locates himself on the terrain, applying classroom theory in a field situation. The trainee may be assigned to a crew-served weapon. He learns the duties of the gunner, assistant gunner, ammo bearer. Each man is intent on learning his individual assignment, perfecting his individual skills, and polishing them into smooth team action. Some weapons demand more than others in sense of timing, in hand-eye coordination, and in the use of control equipment. To fill the continuing need for highly trained infantrymen, schools may be established at unit level. Such schools as vehicle driver schools, mechanics schools, or CBR schools in radiological monitoring using Radiac instruments. Selected individuals have been sent to service schools for further training. With the end of this phase, the soldier completes his individual training. Proficiency tests are conducted on the training he has received. Now that the infantryman is proficient as an individual, he is ready to begin unit training as a member of a team. The objective of basic unit training is to teach the individuals to work together as a team and to qualify the teams to perform their operational missions in squad, section, platoon, and company. Squad training comes first. The men learn squad basic combat formations and their duties within the squad. Squad tactical training prepares the squads for larger scale operations of the same type within the platoons. This includes the weapons squads, anti-tank squads, 81mm mortar squads, and rifle squads. The technique of night use of the compass taught in land navigation during basic combat training is integrated into the exercise. During all phases of training, unit commanders are alert to the integration of previously acquired skills. Combined arms training is introduced in the basic unit phase through an infantry tank attack on an enemy position. In a series of tactical exercises, infantry and tank elements work together in platoon and then in company exercises. Aggressor forces add realism to all training. The platoon leader takes advantage of this type of action to integrate first aid techniques. In the attack on an enemy position, infantry and tanks work together as a combined arms team. The soldier learns the integration of individual and unit skills in coordinated action. Upon completion of each step in this training, squads, sections, platoons, and company undergo Army training tests. By this time, the soldier realizes that teamwork does a bigger and better job, and that his unit does it best. He is ready for the next phase. The objective of advanced unit training is to develop the battalions and brigades into an effective fighting team capable of undertaking combat operations. In a series of exercises, staff officers and unit commanders are trained in the conduct of tactical operations, in the employment of unit techniques, and in developing unit SOPs. These SOPs have been developing from the start of the program in command post exercises conducted by commander and staff. Now the SOPs are tested under simulated battlefield conditions. The field exercise about to take place is an attack on a river line by a reinforced infantry unit, a brigade. For realism, aggressor forces are employed. They prepare to defend the river line. The brigade brings all of its combat power to bear during the attack. Artillery and tanks soften up the enemy positions for the attack. Air support also plays its part. The rifle companies will cross the river, attack the enemy positions, and prepare for further action. Ground and air reconnaissance provides information for the attacking commanders and assists them in properly planning their tactical operations. Training in all these areas is closely supervised. Teletypewriter, CW, and voice radio are used to receive and send messages and orders. Realistic training approximates as nearly as possible the noise, danger, and confusion of battle. As soon as enemy action slackens, helicopters bring in bridging equipment. Combat engineers start to bridge the stream. Every man and every unit must be able to perform their mission in combat by the end of advanced unit training. At the conclusion of advanced unit training, an Army training test is given to all battalions. This test emphasizes unit operations and teamwork. With the results evaluated, the battalion and brigade commanders continue to develop the combat capabilities of their units in division pre-maneuver training. Division pre-maneuver training takes place during the brief period between the end of advanced unit training and the start of field exercises and maneuvers. The division commander's objective in pre-maneuver training is to correct deficiencies observed in all of his units during previous training, to familiarize his unit leaders with division-type operations, and to increase the division's readiness to accomplish the training in the next and final phase. After corrective training has been given where needed, the battalions and brigades, as part of the division, enter into field exercises and maneuvers. This phase begins with additional battalion and brigade field exercises. Battalions and brigades then unite in division exercises. Field exercises and maneuvers further develop the battalions and brigades in field operations and widen the experience of commanders and staffs under large-scale simulated combat conditions. Battlefield surveillance and prompt reporting of any type of enemy activity is stressed. Soldiers are continually taught that seemingly minor enemy movements reported from several areas may add up to significant information requiring immediate action. Troops are taught to protect themselves from the blast, heat, and radiation of nuclear explosions. A nuclear simulator is employed. Training grows to full size in maneuvers, with all branches and services participating. The infantry battalions continue to develop their operational capabilities as part of the brigades and the division. Emphasized is the prompt implementing of orders from higher command, so that each unit learns to execute with professional skill the actions required by the tactical plan to overcome the aggressor forces. The division has now completed the formal phases of cycle training. To maintain its high level of proficiency, the division enters upon operational readiness training. Operational readiness training is normally conducted on an annual basis. Extent of the training depends upon the unit's assigned mission and its personnel gains and losses. Certain training is mandatory, such as the annual qualification in arms, including individual and crew-served weapons. Mandatory too is unit training and Army training tests at each level. Also, special operations training may be prescribed, such as air mobile operations. Or amphibious operations, in addition, vigorous and thorough Ranger-type training is conducted. So that the aggressiveness of the Ranger spirit will be instilled in all infantry units throughout the Army. It's a long, hard way from the newly inducted trainees at the start of the Army training program to the hard, tough, trained soldiers conditioned and ready for combat. The product of planning, direction, and supervision of training at all levels.